Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Got a pretty interesting show for you here today. Going to talk about Michael Beasley and him making an argument for LeBron James's GOAT case that I never thought of before, and I never expected to come from him anyway. So that should be interesting. But before we get to that, you know what time it is. If you're here on YouTube and you haven't already, please make sure you go ahead, click that like, that subscribe, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio-only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, and we should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us that like, that 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. And finally, make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, set an alarm, do whatever you got to do to remember. Saturday nights at 7 p.m. we are live here on the Format Podcast, and we'll give you the opportunity to call in, talk to us, get at me. I love it. I can't wait. So Michael Beasley, this is a guy that he's a really skilled player, at least offensively. He's got pretty much total package, right? Maybe like a lower level Kevin Durant. He can handle the ball. He can take you into the post. He can shoot it, mid-range, 3-ball, all that, right? But we really expected coming out of Kansas State, where I think he was the player of the year in college at Kansas State in his one season. We really expected him to come into the league and be, a dominant type of guy. But you know what they say, the best laid plans of mice and men, right? So things don't always turn out the way we expect them to. And he ended up kind of being a journeyman, being around the league, many different teams. I think he had some substance abuse issues, stuff like that. But overall, a really talented player, and like many a talented player, just didn't quite work out for him the way he would have expected and the way many of us would have expected. So he was on the OG podcast with Udonis Haslem, and Mike Miller, and he had some interesting comments when he got asked about the GOAT debate, because of course he played with LeBron James in Miami, and most players are going to get asked about the GOAT debate, especially if you played with LeBron. So he had some interesting thoughts I hadn't even considered, and some things that made me kind of go back and reevaluate and think about it. So, check it out. I got this clip here. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to talk about it.
My GOAT all time, LeBron. And I can give you very compelling arguments, right? Cool. I just imagine y'all said right. But so if we had right here all the players from history, stats, no names, right? And, we stacked the best point guard, shooting guard, small forward, et cetera, whatever, even bench, even coach. You can put that man's stats up, and he can be the best 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He can have the best coaching resume.
He got the best coaching resume.
He can have the best GM resume. Like, his stats alone, right? Yeah. Just come on. Like, all that 80s, it's just, like, I feel like people that's saying Michael Jordan is the GOAT, like, no disrespect, but y'all just holding on to old feelings. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to acknowledge the fact that what I just said is. You know what I'm saying? Like, he got 40,000 right now, counting. Yeah. And, dog, you seen his resume, bro. Yes. Dog, we think we take care of our body as the top fourth, bro, that he treat himself like a machine. Not even like the Ferrari. He treat himself like the building that houses like, I'm talking about, we gotta make sure it all, because sleep the floors. I'm talking about, bro, he'll be sitting there playing cards with us and somebody be sitting there stretching him. Like, bro,
I know.
But then you don't understand how much that is, how much longevity
that's why he's still doing it 21 years in.
Dog, bro, how are you gonna sit there and say he's not the best ever?
So I'm gonna sit here and say he's not the best ever. I'm gonna hold fast to that. Now he probably, I'm not gonna say there's nothing he could do to ever become the GOAT in my eyes. Obviously it'd take some more winning and et cetera, et cetera. So we're not gonna go down that road in terms of what I think is necessary, but we're gonna react to what Michael Beasley said. And so let's get started. So the first thing I thought was really interesting was why he decided to go with, let's look at stats and no names. And I can only assume that it's his belief that a lot of times, even if stats are inferior, we look at a name and it makes us feel a certain way. And so we have a certain perception based on the name. Okay. All right. I'll give that. But for a guy that played in the league and knows what it is, I found it so interesting that he immediately went to stats, right? But that is so often what we hear of fans from this generation and sports media from this generation. It's all about stats, throwing numbers at people. Okay, cool. Stats are a numerical representation of what took place on the floor. And I get that. The numbers are the numbers. And they say numbers never lie, but that's not true. Numbers do not tell the whole truth because, one, with all this analytics and all these math nerds and all that, we can make the numbers say whatever we want, right? I think it was last season, somebody came out with some stats saying that Jokic was a better defender than David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon. Like, that's an example of stats lying to you, right? So somebody finagled some numbers and came up with some crazy formula that's telling you something, but really that's not the case if you have eyes or if you know anything about basketball. So Michael Beasley choosing to go with stats, he should know better than that. And so it's real interesting that he didn't take into account, one, and this is where I keep going with stats, he didn't take into account the conditions under which the stats were accrued, right? The rules changes, the way the game is played today versus the way it was played when Michael Jordan and others were playing. And so it's kind of disingenuous to say, put all these guys' stats up here and no names and he will be at the top. First of all, it's a flat out lie to say he'll be at the top of all the stats. So the biggest one, he says, well, he got 40,000 and still going. Okay, yes, he's got 40,000 and still going. And again, that is incredible. And I did a show maybe last week or the week before, and I gave him his props for that incredible statistical achievement because there's no doubt about it. Obviously, no one's ever done that before, and that's an incredible mark to hit. But again, we got to take into account. We got to take into account the rules. We have to take into account the way the game is played. Okay, cool. I'm not going to beat that drum anymore. But it's really neat that he doesn't seem to want to acknowledge what having game means, right? And this is a guy who is well known for being an elite one-on-one player, to the point that even when he was in Miami, he consistently beat LeBron James in one-on-one. I thought that LeBron was supposed to be some elite defender, but anyway, he consistently beat LeBron James in one-on-one. And later in this video, if you want to go check it out, Udonis Haslem actually says that he's never seen Michael Beasley lose a game of one-on-one. Does that mean Udonis Haslem saw every single game of one-on-one Michael Beasley ever played? No, but, you get the point. He was around and he's one of the leaders on that team. And so, he would have been around and seen most of that. But I really think that, the fact that I keep getting back to this, I'm really astounded that he's going with this all stats, no names. So let's talk about it a little bit, right? If you break it up, like he said, by position. So let's go point guards. So I think LeBron James is 4th or 5th on the all-time assist list. Again, incredible. No doubt. But 20 years, and he's still like 5,000 assists behind John Stockton. Interesting. And so let's do this. You can say, Michael Beasley said that his stats are ahead of everybody at every position. Well, clearly not if there's 3 or 4 guys ahead of him at the assist, which is the primary counting number for point guards, right? Well, I guess now point guards are scoring more than they ever have, but that's the primary counting number for point guards is assists. And LeBron James he's not at the top of that list, so we can go ahead and we can kill that. Okay, cool. Obviously, LeBron James is not a shooting guard, but we know the top 2 shooting guards of all time, without question, are Michael Jordan and then Kobe Bryant, right? Now, LeBron James does, in fairness, have more points than both of them. Okay, cool. Michael Jordan is 4th on the all-time scoring list now, and he was 3rd after playing only 15 seasons. Obviously, LeBron James has played 21, so there's that. LeBron James has shot a ton more threes. There's that. The rules, there's that. Not gonna get into it, but if we want to just say flat out stats, LeBron James has more points as shooting guard than Michael Jordan. Does that mean he's the best shooting guard of all time? No, nobody in their right mind would say that, but we'll just go with his argument of stats. Okay, small forward stats. He's got more points. I think he's got more assists, and he may have more rebounds than any small forward ever. So I don't believe he's the best small forward ever, but just going with this argument of the stats, okay, we will give him that. Small forward, got you. Power forward. Are we really doing this? Are we really doing this? He's clearly not a top 5 power forward. Obviously, Tim Duncan comes to mind. Kevin Garnett comes to mind. Karl Malone comes to mind. He's not at the top of stats for power forwards. I mean, that's not my opinion. That's just what it is. He has played some power forward in his career, but he's not at the top of stats in that. The only stat he's on top of in that is points, but he's not at the top of rebounds. He is at the top of assists, but no one expects power forwards to get assists. So that one is iffy. And do we really even need to do center? I mean, do we really need to? Wilt Chamberlain played only 14 seasons, and he was the all-time leading scorer when he retired, has the second highest scoring average in history, blah, blah, blah. Highest rebounding average in history, more rebounds than anyone in history, and in only 14 years. So LeBron is doing tremendous things, but he's doing in 21 years what some of these guys did in 14 and 15 seasons. And just for the Wilt Chamberlain thing, I actually looked this up before doing this show. Wilt Chamberlain first. How do we say that LeBron has more stats than him if you're Michael Beasley? And why did nobody on this show push back? Because Wilt Chamberlain holds 72 NBA records, 68 of them individual. Come on, man. Like, what's the argument? Wilt Chamberlain, in his 14-season career, played 1,045 games. In his first 14 seasons, LeBron James played about 100 more games than that. And Wilt Chamberlain still scored 3,000 more points playing 100 less games. I mean, you know, there it is. Wilt Chamberlain in his first 14 seasons played 47,859 minutes. LeBron in his first 14 seasons, 41,272 minutes. So we keep getting back to this. You want to say stats, and not you being you, but Michael Beasley says, you know, if we take position and we take name away, he has more stats. No. Now, are we going to argue that he is playing at the highest level of anyone who's ever played this long? We can't. The evidence is before us, right? You hear me talk about it all the time. I'm an empirical evidence guy, and the evidence is there. LeBron James is clearly playing at the highest level of anyone we've ever seen who's played this long. I'm not stupid. I'm not going to sit here and argue that with you. But again, did he have to deal with the physicality? No, all that stuff plays a difference. I mean, did he get bodied the way so many of these other guys got banged around who played a long career? No, this stuff makes a difference. Again, LeBron James, you're incredible. Michael Beasley, I think that's so interesting that you would come out and say that. I mean, especially knowing that you are a guy who prided himself on his game. And so it's real neat that you would utilize the whole blind statistics argument, because again, you don't take into account everything that goes into that. And then again, this is a guy who, Michael Beasley, consistently beat LeBron James in one-on-one. So it's real weird that you would think that, like, most of the time when you see a guy like that and he consistently beats the other guy one-on-one, he's like, well, this guy has done better than me in his career, but I'm a better player than him because I beat him. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the kind of things. If you're around hoopers or you're around ball players, that's kind of the mentality that they have. Or even if you are one, that's kind of the mentality that they have. Now, in fairness, there is a difference between hoopers and ball players. There's a lot of guys who could really hoop, who could go out there and get it, but maybe aren't the best in that organized situation, a la LeBron James, or can't, put a team on their back and carry them like LeBron James has done within his career. Okay, cool. Now, here's something else that I thought was super interesting that he said. LeBron James' best coaching resume? What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Are you high right now in this interview? What best coaching resume? LeBron James is not a coach. If you want to argue he's a coach on the floor, okay, cool, but he's not a coach. So best coaching resume, yeah, that's out. Now, best GM resume. I've actually had this argument with some of my friends who say LeBron is a great GM. And I'm like, well, how is he a great GM if he constantly has to reload rosters because the roster that he put together around him didn't work out? So he has to trade everybody away and try to rebuild it mid-season and all that. How does that make you a great GM? I don't know. I've never seen any other GM do it to the extent that he does. He's supposed to be a great GM according to Michael Beasley, but his teams, since he went to Miami, have had more players traded than any other player of his level in NBA history. Like, that doesn't add up. I mean, I don't know. The stuff that these LeBron fans say, it seems to me that they just don't think about it before they say stuff. They really don't. And he sounded like he was ready. He's like, I'm gonna give you a legitimate argument. It sounded like he was ready to say something that was gonna make sense. And then he didn't. And this is oftentimes what you get from these LeBron fans. It's really weird. You get a bunch of stats and numbers thrown at you. You get a bunch of incomplete arguments. You get a bunch of incoherent arguments. You get a bunch of feelings-based arguments. And it's funny that he said, you know, those people that are still talking about Michael Jordan is the best, you're just holding on to your feelings. But we're talking about holding on to feelings, and I'm not trying to turn this into a Michael Jordan, LeBron James thing, but there are a number of logical, rational, irrefutable arguments that you can make that proves Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, including, LeBron James saying that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time. There's that. All right, so what I want to know from you is, what do you think of Michael Beasley's comments? Do you think that he really believes that LeBron is the GOAT? Do you think his argument makes any sense? Leave your comments in the comments section. Can't wait to hear from you. Can't wait to get back to you. Make sure you check back with us Saturday night at 7 p.m. for the live show, and I'll be back with you next episode. And I'm out. Peace.